And I think that the fact is that the resources to achieve 40-40-20 they aren't just fiscal resources that exist at the state level or at the local district level. There are a whole group of resources in the community, the business community, religious organizations, the faith community. There are not-for-profits, a whole host of players who right now are not engaged, and I think would like to be engaged, but they're not quite sure how to do it. And I think that if we're going to be successful, all those folks have to be part of this conversation. And there's a chance here to build on some infrastructure that we've already got out there called our regional solutions structure. And for those of you who don't understand what it is, I just want to quickly describe it to you. We've broken the state up into a number of regions, and this is really focused on economic and community development. And we've appointed a convener, prominent citizens, to actually be the convener in that region. So, for example, in Central Oregon, we've got Mike Holleran from Brooks Resources, and Northeast, we've got Betsy Johnson. And then there's a committee, a regional solutions committee, sort of a cross-section of the community. And then we've co-located actual staff from the key community development agencies, economic development, housing, transportation, DEP, land use. And what this regional committee does is they identify a set of regional priorities, and then we sit down and develop what we call a declaration of cooperation. So everybody says, okay, to get this done, here's my job and here's what I'm going to do. A recent example of a success was this agreement up in the Columbia River Gorge to actually withdraw water from the Columbia in peak winter season when fish don't need it, and release it in the summer when the farmers and fish do need it, which has been sort of like impossible to even have that conversation. We got that pounded out with local government, with conservationists, with the agriculturists, and everyone has their handshake. And what I envision with this, and I just am really excited about it, is that it moves this discussion we're having from sort of an ethereal level down to the point of delivery. And people are much more engaged and willing to do things for their community than things that they don't quite see the connection with. So I can envision, let's just take Central Oregon, for example, where you have a branch university, a community college, and school districts convening all the other players in that community, all the resources that are available in that community, identifying what the shared goals are, what the problems are. How many kids in that area need mentors? How many mentors can we connect them with? What can the business community provide? What issues do each of those schools have? And so you make this a proposition about the whole community, about everybody. This is all making these things work and getting these things over the line belongs to everyone who's in the state of Oregon. This is a way to do that. And I think the final thing is it doesn't leave the schools dangling out there. I think that, we have these huge aspirations, and you can't just assume that this is all going to happen in the school building. First of all, a lot of the things, as we well know, that affect the ability of a child to perform don't happen in the school. They really do involve the larger community, so they have to be invited in. And the idea of having some pilots on developing a regional compact to me is extraordinarily exciting, and can make what we're doing very real, and I think really accelerate the outcomes that we see. So with that, I'll stop rambling on, but I just this is very, very exciting.
Dr. Curtis, did you want to begin with an overview, or
I'll begin.
Okay.
The details. So I just want to say that we had a really productive meeting, and one of the things I really appreciate about the way we're looking in the committee is that we're taking one topic and really spending a lot of time on it, because oftentimes we don't have that time at the board. But we can take a topic and not only explore it as a committee, but invite other partners in. And I just wanted to thank a few members who are coming today, Dr. Matt Coleman from Springfield School District, Jim Middleton, who was on the phone with us, but he's been here also several times in person, from Central Oregon Community College, Dan Ryan from All Hands Raised, and Nate Washul from All Hands Raised facilitated and volunteered their time today, and it was really helpful to have that facilitation and free the rest of us up to participate or record or write whatever we needed to do. What we are going to ask the board to do is to support the committee's request to move forward on some concepts, and Michael's going to talk a little bit more in detail on what those are. We started to go through a wordsmithing exercise and really evolved to a conversation that really was about what's the intent, and some of the ideas we came up with were really, really strong. The other thing is that we do have a pilot that is a research-based program in Multnomah County, and it's the All Hands Raised project that's a part of STRIVE. And some of the questions we're trying to answer, they're actually already exploring. There's some best practice around it, there's some standards. And so what we want to do is ask you for support on the concepts and let us continue to learn more about getting clear about the elements and what we might ask of some of these pilots, but having some freedom to explore some of those with some of the partners that have already begun that work. So I'll let Michael talk about those.
Thank you, Dr. Curtis and Governor. I just want to provide a sort of brief snapshot of where we are with this document and where it's come over the course of about 4 or 5 months. Everyone has this copy in front of them, and this is actually literally hot off the press a few minutes ago. This is the document that was just updated live in that Best Practices Subcommittee just this morning. So I do apologize. It was put together quite hastily with the final touches, and there may be a few typos within it. So over the course of the last 4 months, there's been several changes and shifts in the way we've talked about this concept, and I think just recently, Governor, with the Regional Solutions idea, it's really sort of crystallized the way that we're thinking about this and helped us sort of guide our thinking around how it's actually going to roll out. As Dr. Curtis had just said, some of the finer details about what it's actually going to look like in process, what the procedures and the protocols are going to be, some of those are still forthcoming, and we want to make sure the concept is okay with the board right now, and that we have the official go-ahead to start discussing in a more official capacity. So some of the big changes that we've seen take shape here over the last 4 months. We're trying to really capture this essence of tight loose with trying to paint a picture that allows the regions to really see that this is an opportunity to innovate, to build, and to shape, and to create something that's unique, to create a new approach to how they do business and how schools operate and how communities are ultimately going to pull together with a larger sense of a collective ownership of what we formerly used to think was just owned by a school. So a 3rd grade reading score, an 8th grade math score, or the number of associates or bachelor's degrees. This is something we really want to sense that the community owns, and that if there's somebody in a local business who sees a 3rd grade reading score, they'll feel just as responsible for that as the people in the school. So a lot of the language that we've been mining through this, it's getting tighter in that area, and that's an area we still want to continually mine the language for to ensure that it has this sense of communities will build these things, and this isn't necessarily just a mandate from the top down. Metrics is one place where I think that there were a number of changes here. Originally, there was a student level outcome, a student outcome section here that looked very similar to the existing institutional achievement compacts. And after various discussions, the consensus was that we didn't need to drill down to such a deep level, but rather provide a high level snapshot of maybe just 5 or 6 metrics that would just give the region a sense of how things are going. And the one image we have here on page 3 is where we've more or less landed on what these metrics are going to be on the student side. And you can see that they're about KRA, 3rd and 8th grade reading and math, 9th grade on track, high school diplomas and completion, and then some sort of certificate license or bachelor's degree. But we didn't want this all to be just about student level outcomes, so we want to weigh it equally and perhaps in a calibrated measure with a process outcome. And one of the great benefits of having partners like All Hands Raised, Nate Warshall and Dan Ryan, is that they were able to connect us with some great thinking happening at a national level through the STRIVE National Partnership. And the STRIVE Partnership is interested in looking at a process of how communities actually do this work. So as we're doing this, we can not only look at student outcomes and 3rd grade reading scores, but we could actually track how regions are performing across a series of metrics, which is captured at the top of page 5. around things like creating a shared community vision, evidence-based decision-making, collaborative action, investment and sustainability. The idea here is that we really want regions to start thinking differently, and that we don't want them to feel like they might be shamed by taking a risk. We want to say, no, you tried that, you went out and got a partner, you found somebody to help you with this, and we want to reward you and demonstrate that you're still moving east across this document. As opposed to just battening down the shutters because you're worried that your third grade reading score, your fifth grade math score may not be reflected in the work that you've done. So we really want to encourage regions to take ownership of this process, and by weighing student outcomes along with these more community-based measures, we think that that's going to certainly encourage people to do that. So those are just some of the big changes that we've had as we've gone across this document, and it's been a process that I'm thrilled to participate in, and I think it's really going to be a positive shift going forward here. And again, Governor, I think the connection with the regional solutions is really going to help us, provide a guide rail for us as we move forward into this more or less, uncharted waters with the regional compacts.
Going through this process, first of all, Michael's a miracle worker because this thing was about 7-8 pages at what, 12:30?
About that, yeah.
So pretty impressive job of cutting and pasting under pressure. I would say, just to echo both Yvonne and Michael today, that there was widespread consensus in our group that this is a real opportunity for us to look at innovation and outside the box thinking, and we needed to provide a document that allowed that. So if what you see here is a whole lot on concept and a whole lot less on detail, and that was on purpose, so that this would be something that regions, to give them the opportunity to empower themselves to determine where, just along like with the solutions program, where is it that they really want to focus and how are they going to work together. And it was a heavy lift, we know that, and we did not want the pilot to be something that turned people off for initiative fatigue. We wanted it to be relevant for who they are and where they wanted to set their goals. So there was strong consensus. It was a great process today, and we're excited. And what we're bringing to you today is a concept paper on how we visualize that, knowing that the details and the boxes filled in are going to be by the participants as we go through this.
Yes, Brian?
Yes, I just need a little help understanding, I guess. I'm 100% in favor of regional cooperation and coordination, and this sounds wonderful. But how do we avoid this becoming another level? How do we avoid this becoming another level of costs, of bureaucracy, of process? Even when it talks about costing money, it's not clear to me why groups cooperating with each other costs money.
Thank you, Mr. Saxton. I think that's a terrific question, and I guess the way I would answer that is by saying, we currently have these existing achievement compacts, and we're not exactly happy with what the results that we're getting in terms of what it's encouraging a school to do or what it's encouraging a region to do. It focuses too much on the indicator. So this was an example I gave, I think, a month or two ago when I presented to the board, is that if we wanted to change the temperature, change the temperature reading on an indicator, we wouldn't go up and tamper with the thermometer. We'd actually try to change the environment or what it's measuring. And by doing this process, I think we go straight to the heart of that effort of actually changing what's happening in a school, who the partners are, the level of programming that's available, and ultimately putting together a concoction of programs that are responsive to the needs of the kids. There's always going to be a cost affiliated with that, especially when there's professional development opportunities, when principals need to learn how to be engaged with their community if they're used to a very siloed process of working. And I think there's some murmurs and discussions now that this could eventually come to be the primary achievement compact, and we wouldn't need it to work side by side with the existing institutional compacts.
Okay, I'm not satisfied with that answer all this day, so I want to just express that I'm very supportive of cooperation, very concerned about creating new bureaucracy.
So can I take a cut there, right? Because I'm not sure exactly why let me back up. I mean, I view this sort of through the lens of the experience that we've had with our regional solutions effort, which actually started back in the late 90s with some called the solutions team. So I share the question why this would cost additional money. I mean, there's some staffing involved. We actually have, and I'm not saying regional solutions process is a perfect fit, but conceptually it's the same thing. And we actually have existing capacity in those regions right now that are very, very skilled at facilitating and convening. We've got the Oregon Solutions Network, we've got the Oregon Consensus Center, we've got the Oregon Solutions Center already staffed up. And I guess what I was envisioning is doing a pilot in one of those areas using that same infrastructure, except convening a different set of players and proving that out. I think there is tremendous enthusiasm in the area for people to do this. So I guess what I view this is as the opportunity to do a couple of pilots and see how that works and then report back to the board. So I guess I'm with Ron in the sense that I think we've got a lot of infrastructure out there today. There may be some costs that I'm not anticipating, but that's my cut on it.
I just want to mention that in our committee meetings, we didn't talk a whole lot about resource. In fact, the one place we talked about resource, we actually took out because we felt like that conversation about resource sort of stops the conversation. What we did agree is there are already partnerships that are working and processes in place that we can learn from, but we couldn't learn fast enough today to get the descriptors on the page for you to be able to answer all of that. So what we wanted to do is say, here are the things that we know right now we think are important to this concept, and we want to work with those groups that are already working and sort of cross-look at what are the variables or the learnings from all of those processes that could inform. So I guess we didn't really talk about what resource we would name. I'm just going to maybe throw an example, and they're not huge costs, but for example, if my district wanted to get started in a process like that and I wanted to bring in principals and teachers, right now I'm stretched so thin in my district, I can't give you any principals and teachers unless I have somebody to take their place while kids are there. So I'm thinking costs might be just around those sort of convening things and giving support where you just need to get coverage. But I don't know, we didn't really talk about that yet because more of our enthusiasm and excitement was around the possibility and the fact that we already have some successful models that have kind of paid the price of the first couple of years, figured out what wasn't working and what does work. And that's the next step we want to do is learn from them. We did identify, I'll just throw out some of the things that we did talk about. If I can open this fast enough. Good one, you want to do this fast.
Okay. While Dr. Curtis is getting that document open, I'll just say too, one of the critical pieces of this plan right now is a convenings conference where it's actually going to put people in the same room and around the same tables together. So you can really just break down a lot of the structures that usually keep people from collaborating. There could be something as simple as distance or just not being in front of somebody, which oftentimes can be a barrier to being held accountable.
So we want to make sure that even the criteria we would use for selecting the pilots, and maybe it's not even the first pilots, because the first pilots are going to help us figure this out. The next sort of generation of pilots would help us identify things like what are the process outcomes? What do we need to do in terms of capacity building? That's where professional development, some of those things that might cost some dollars, might be identified. What's the structure for working together so that it's not happenstance, and when the players change, we sort of forget how that worked and now we have to reinvent it again. So those are some of the things that we talked about doing, and what we realized today is this is an evolving process and there's so much to learn around it because it's so different from a top-down approach that we've been looking at with the first achievement compacts. We're really trying to flip that completely. So I think there's just a lot of work to do still.
I was just going to encourage us around this effort to really be clear and honest with ourselves. And I think convening does have costs. And maybe later when all hands raised is up at the mic, they can share, because as a former board member of that organization, we've had a lot of success and been heralded around the state for the outcomes and the ability to bring people together. But all hands raised has had to raise money to do that and build different and expanded capacities. And I also think that we are constantly asking school administrators and nonprofit leaders to lead their organization and the service of their community to participate in these convenings, and substitutes cost money. You have to have people in the building to run your programs and actually serve the kids so that you can convene and collaborate. I agree with you, Ron, about not sort of creating another layer, but oftentimes we drain the capacity of our most important informants and community partners, and I think we need to be frugal and thoughtful, but we have to be honest with ourselves that it costs money. If we're going to do it, we might as well do it well and resource it at an appropriate level. So I don't have to have all the answers, but I just want us to be planful and intentional about that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to slip out, so I won't know how this ends. But I share that. I guess my only point is that I don't perceive this as going full blown into regional compacts all over the state. I do think that we are resourced right now for convening and consensus building in other areas, that some of that could be used as a pilot. That I think your point's very well taken about, particularly inside the educational system. If you expect a teacher or somebody to go, you better back them up. But I just think the concept is a good one in terms of engaging a group of stakeholders and with resources that are not at the table now, and finding out whether in fact we can get them there and really sort of accelerate what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Governor. I'll call you as soon as I
Let me know how this
I
turns
know
out.
that sounds. I'll text you. How's that?
Let me know how this was actually voted.
So, David?
Yeah, I just want to echo what the others said, that I think important we do have some investment tied to this. It's getting very frustrating when this board comes out with new initiatives and new proposals, and we're telling really resource-starved districts, just make do and add this on your plate. It's very frustrating. So I think that's an important signal we're sending here by at least dedicating some funding to this. I don't consider this another layer of bureaucracy. I consider what the compact should have been in the first place, which is regional collaborations, not a competitive system of district against district, school district against community college against university fighting for funding. This is the way it is being interpreted in some districts. And I think this is a way to get it back to centering it around student success and having every student complete high school, as many students go to college and complete there as we can. I think this is a real good way to get there. And just to finish up, we did loosen and take a lot out of what was in the original proposal, with the understanding that this is a pilot. And we will see as it evolves with the pilots that come to us with the request for qualifications, and that this board approves to go ahead with. And as we work with those pilots to see how this turns out, and I'd just like to remind the board, we've heard a lot about inclusion, both from community groups and inside the institutions themselves, from teachers and staff. And I'd just like to have the board keep that in mind as these proposals come to us and we're approving them, that they really are inclusive measures with that kind of planning in them, that they're not going to be seen as a top-down kind of program. So I'd like for us to keep that in mind when we are reviewing proposals as they come to us for pilots.
So I want to see, because this is discussion, then I'm going to call for the question. So is there any more discussion we need? Did have anybody else? Anna? And then I want to kind of summarize what I heard before we call for the question.
So I just want to understand what we're doing today is we're approving the concepts that are going out, but there's still some meat to put on the bones. I think Dave just talked about. It's really key to have some intentional conversations about leadership teams and what that looks like for this to be successful. So I think is this coming back to our retreat, or are we rolling it out? What are next steps so that when we approve this concept?
So this is my understanding, and then let me see. What I heard is that there'd be some pilots. I've heard consensus around that there'd be some pilots, that we don't want another layer of bureaucracy, that we only want to use resources that are absolutely necessary, but some resources are necessary. So I think we're checking to see can we give approval to that, knowing what we've heard here is an important part of that, and that we would go forward with some pilots and we would learn from them, and before it would become the way we do things, it would come back here after the pilots, right?
Right, and remember, one of the things we talked about today is that maybe the first round of pilots are really working with pilots that are sort of already going to start to identify those factors that we should be measuring. So we all agree that we have to have the student outcome measures, but what are all those other process indicators that indicate you're on the right track to making the kind of progress that some of them are already making? One might be just that idea of how do you identify a milestone and what are all those indicators along that road, and how do we all get very focused on what those indicators are. So I just want to say, I don't expect that the first round is we throw out an RFP like we've always done and just kind of see who jumps in and see how close it is to this criteria. That's not what we want to do. We feel like that's sort of the old top-down model, but instead what we want to do is work with identifying what do we know to be successful by the partners who've already done this in the state. We did talk about the leadership team. You notice that we took that language out because it was another part that was keeping us focused on an old model about does it have this player or that player, and we all agreed together that this whole concept is about being inclusive and in making sure that in any regional compact, depending on what the milestone is that the student outcome indicator you're working on, you would include all those players that you could, but that you would also work deep within the organization. Obviously, you have to have the CEOs or superintendents or presidents, whoever the decision makers are at the top, but you do have to work deep to make sure you have all these levels. So not to indicate that it's more layers of bureaucracy, but that you have some way of processing with all those different groups along the way that are going to be impacted. Because if you don't work with all those players, you're not going to get real change towards changes in student outcomes.
And I think a good way to think about this is today is the official initiation point here. So it's something, this initiative is really top-down initiated. It's going to be bottom-up developed, but then top-down supported. And I think that gets at several different questions here. One, that there is going to be a cost in supporting it, whether it's subbing out teachers or providing just a basic level of funding to help people get to convenings and whatnot. But also that this is going to be owned by the regions, and that we need to begin communicating with the regions in an official capacity for that to begin to happen, and that we need to move this process along with the RFP. So today is going to be should the vote go forward, that it would be communicating in an official capacity to begin empowering the regions to build in the pieces to allow them to develop it from the bottom up.
Any other clarifying questions?
Chair,
Yes.
when do we perceive we'll have data back from this that we can then say this is a good idea or this is not a good idea?
I would expect that we could do temperature readings throughout the year, certainly not on the student outcome side, but certainly on the community's progress side, to see whether they're in these different categories of exploratory, emerging, sustaining, or approaching systems change. And I'll be working closely with all hands raised and their STRIVE partnership to make determinations about what we think are reasonable growth levels. And those also, definitions of reasonableness may come out of the pilot as well.
6 months, 12 months? I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to figure out what this
Well, if you look at
really
the
means.
timeline, we're talking about this convening conference in the summer, so that's still creating and putting them together and getting all the information that will come to us about what these look like. I think it was October or something. And then, so I think what we can do is start to bring just sort of progress information along the way, like here's what we're clear about needs to be there in terms of elements. I don't know what the next step would be, probably about how people process. Then we'd have this conference in the summer where a lot of the partners are getting together, sort of figuring out what those milestones are that they're going to commit to, maybe within a region. So I think there's sort of steps to this process since we're inventing it as we go along. And I would think once we identify in October, we should be able to work, I don't know, look to all hands raised people. How soon can you have indicators that you might be able to give some report on? 3 months, 6 months?
Hi. Dan Ryan with All Hands Raised. There are several ways of looking at the indicators that you're mentioning and measuring success. So I'll look at Nicole and remember how long it took to get to the cross-sector buy-in to what our priorities were. So it was a miracle that we have 3 priorities, starting with equity as 1, looking at out-of-school time as 2, and early childhood as 3. And so it's important for a region to figure out what they're going to focus on. And that's when we realized, because the superintendents told us, if you really wanted to see more success for their students, then how could we come together as a community and wrap ourselves around the school districts and provide more 24/7 care with everybody having their hands up and being involved. So building that concept and building that organization is one thing, and then you start to see when your work teams come together and focus on a specific indicator, it starts to escalate as time goes on. And we have a disciplined approach. It's called continuous improvement. I'll try to wrap this up quickly, but we make certain that at every meeting that we stay focused on the agenda and we stay focused on the indicators. And then we're seeing, such as with 9th grade counts, which looks at the 8th and 9th grade transition, that we are seeing outcomes that are dramatically improving because the 6 districts are aligned and there's 12 community partners working with them. And that's influencing an increase in graduation rates in Multnomah County that's at a faster pace right now than the rest of the state for the first time in years. So you will see that escalation of the indicators I believe that you're speaking to. But it was a business community at the table that said, you don't build something like this radical and new and different, and think that in 1 year you're going to see a bump up of 5 or 6 points. But you will start to see that in year 2, 3, 4, and 5. So is this answering the question?
Dr. Crew wants to add to the conversation.
I actually don't want to add to the conversation because I'm afraid of it. But this is getting far too complex, right? And I think Ron is right. The degree to which we actually understand that the equation here is an equation that says this board makes investments. They want to know, essentially, that those investments, both soft experiences, if you will, collaboration, and hard, meaning actual dollars, result in there being a better outcome for students. This body of work and the tool called Compact, Regional Compact, is essentially a tool now being slightly modified from its origin, but this is a tool that's actually going to be used to help spearhead how those resources come around specific unmet needs in a region. That's the extent of it. We are going to track and find these results. And I do expect that there will be a bump. I don't want to get into it right now, but I will say to you, there has to be some actual gain by virtue of people investing and focusing on a given problem in a relatively short period of time. I don't think this is going to be 2 years, 5 years, 6 years out, and we'll find out something down the road. No, I think you've got some time to put some wheels on this pilot or on the pilots. Those pilots will actually show up both with some really good process outcomes that we ought to be paying attention to, and they'll come up with some really good cognitive, if you will, hard data outcomes, and I think we're going to see them both. What and where and how they manifest themselves is too early for me to tell, and I couldn't begin to say. But I want to be clear to the board that that is in fact what's being proffered here. That this is not about more process as compared to more outcome. This is not about more outcome at the sacrifice of good process. This is about both actually being able to come together and reflect the kind of mutuality, the kind of mutual investment in a set of outcomes that we all said we wanted to and adopted as part of the strategic plan.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anna?
So I appreciate the comment by Mr. Ryan about it does take time. If we're talking about 3rd grade reading, it's one of the clear benchmarks that we have. We're going to start interventions really early on before our students get into kindergarten. But we're not going to see 3rd grade reading necessarily when we start with those students for some time. So if we start in kindergarten and we're working on little skills, but I think you also have to look at, in education, every class is a different group of students that are coming through. They have different skills that they bring to the table in the first place. So I think we do have to make sure that we're respectful of looking at what we're implementing as strategies and then actually letting it play out to understand that cohort of students. Are we making a difference? So I appreciate that comment.
Okay, so we're talking about a vehicle that helps us with our investments, leverage ourselves, our communities for our investment. Now let's take Mark.
Yeah, and I think these are all great comments, and I think we developed a document that at this point in the game is loose enough to allow the creativity to move forward and these issues to be addressed in certain pilot areas. So I would move, Madam Chair, for acceptance of the regional chief of compact pilot concept paper as presented.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? Nicole seconds it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have some invited testimony. And I think you've noticed what we've been doing differently is making sure there's more time for us to discuss things. But at certain times, we know there's people or groups that have really begun to do some of the things we're investing in, like making sure our freshmen in community college stay in community college, particularly our underrepresented students. So we do have a group now called Future Connect at Portland Community College who is going to present to us, and I know from the information I got they've made extraordinary gains in terms of retention. So are our presenters here for... Just in time, right? Okay.
Members, if I could.
Sure.
This group came by way of actually sort of chance meeting in some ways that I had when I was at just visiting community colleges throughout the state, and happened to walk in on this group of really fine educators and the work that they were doing with their students, and thought, wow, just listening to the students that they had brought in and having an opportunity to really hear the measure of growth that these young people had made over the course of time by way of the kind of counseling and support that's offered to them here. I thought, this is, you're right. I'm sure these are exemplars. These are the exact kinds of models that we want to see proliferate throughout the entire state. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Want to just introduce yourselves? That would be great.
Sure. I'm Pam Blumenthal. I'm the Director of Alternative Programs at Portland Community College.
And I'm Joshua Laurie. I'm the Program Manager of the Future Connect program at Portland Community College.
My name is Rebecca Moyer, and I'm one of the college coaches.
So we wanted to say how honored we are to be here, and thank you to Dr. Crew and the board for inviting us to present on our program, Future Connect. It's a very exciting, innovative program that we are currently spreading, hopefully, throughout our region. At PCC, we're in the business of providing higher education opportunities for a diverse student population. Many of the students we serve would not access post-secondary education if it were not for us and for our unique programs. In 2010, our college president, Dr. Preston Pulliams, and then Mayor Sam Adams, Portland City Mayor Sam Adams, identified the need to provide more opportunities for low-income, first-generation students in Multnomah County to access college and succeed in college. They understood that providing access is not the complete solution. We also need success and completion for our students. So we've devised a model, which Josh will be providing you more information about, which incorporates what we know works, cohort learning, supportive services, staff that really understand the unique needs of students, and outreach into the community to really engage the students and others serving the student population. The unique funding model really is engaging the entire community. With the city's contribution, the college foundation is matching that contribution by engaging individual contributors and corporations. So we're creating a sustainable model that involves everybody in the success of our young people and to increase the economic vitality of our region. So Josh will now spend some time really describing the details of how this program works and some of the successes that we're already experiencing 2 years in.
Excellent. I'm going to try and make this work here. Good afternoon, Chair Crew and members of the board. Thank you again for allowing us to present. I've gone through this presentation several times, and to get it to 9 minutes is going to be difficult, but I'm going to try and be very succinct, and hopefully I don't speak too quickly, so I apologize in advance. This partnership is really about different entities in the community coming together to support our students transitioning from high school to college. And this really started, sorry, it's not the right button, there we go. All right, this really started about 7 years ago when we came up with Cradle to Career Initiative and ideas and data that basically backed these numbers right here. For every 10 Multnomah County students who entered high school, 6 will graduate, 4 will go to college, and 2 will complete. And this information is pretty disheartening. And from that, several partnerships began to come to fruition. And 2 partnerships specifically right now, we have a regional-wide initiative, Multnomah County, and now with the city of Hillsborough, we are working to provide additional access and support to students who are first generation or low income. And specifically, this is built around the idea of connecting scholarship money to a continuum of support. So this is not just dollars, but really a support system that helps bridge the gap between high school and college. How we do that? We do that through these kind of 3 basic partners: the cities, the schools, and the college. And I'm going to speak briefly about each one and really focus on the college coach, because that's the essence of our program. So if we look at the cities first, the cities, really right now we have the city of Portland and the city of Hillsborough, and each of them are funding a total of about 250 students. So the city of Portland currently funds a cohort for 2 years, 200 students. And that initial investment from the city is about $380,000, and that's matched by the PCC Foundation. We now have online the city of Hillsborough, and we're excited to branch out to Washington County to work with a cohort of 50 students for 2 years. So that investment is for 2 years, and it really comes down to a per student investment of $4,000, $2,000 from each partner. That's really the foundation of the partnership. And what that does is that helps us to get out into the schools early. We have college success coaches. Currently we have 5 of them, and right now the 4 of them are connecting to 28 schools within the Multnomah County region, and they basically work with clusters of high schools. And those coaches are PCC employees who are going out to do pre-advising, financial aid literacy, and begin developing the rapport that's already exists at those high schools. We're not trying to recreate those relationships, we're just trying to build upon them. So when the student comes to us in fall, they feel comfortable and they feel like they belong. To do this, we also have to connect with all the many community-based organizations that are also involved in a student's life. We understand that a student doesn't just have a relationship with a high school, but many of our students, specifically those who are coming from disenfranchised backgrounds, they have all kinds of individuals who are connecting to them. So our coaches work to develop relationships with those community-based organizations as well. This is just a quick list of some of those partners that we're currently working with in Multnomah County. The key to this really, though, is how those coaches work to support our students when they come to the college. And we do that through 4 major support mechanisms. The first is obviously the college coach. Becca will speak to her role as a college coach, but essentially the college coach provides this personalized academic advising and guidance and case management to a student as they exit high school. They've already developed a relationship out in high school, they work with them over the course of the summer, and then they're their sole advisor when they come to PCC. We have a litany of summer bridge activities, if you will. We do 4 orientation sessions for students that are intensive. They're all day. It's an 8-hour day where we expect students to come out. They're going to meet other Future Connect scholars, so they're meeting other individuals who are from similar backgrounds, maybe even the same schools that they're coming from. And they do a workshop where they learn leadership skills, they do financial literacy, and what we're learning is that many of our second-year students are now coming back to be leaders in that group. So they're talking about, well, is my experience as someone who went to Gresham High and now I'm a sophomore at PCC, this is what I experienced as a first generation, and this is what you can learn from me. The coaches also teach 2 free classes that we have. These classes start in fall and winter. So a new student who's in our program has not only developed a relationship with the coach at their high school, but now the first person they're seeing when they step foot on campus is that coach who's the instructor of their college survival class. We provide the tuition for these 2 credit classes, and they're both 2 credit classes that are transferable to the university. So we've taken that cohort model and now allowed them to develop that relationship in a smaller class. That extends to winter term, so we have a CG 130, which we call the Today's Careers class, and that's focusing on how they're going to connect what they're doing in the academic classroom to their career. The final piece of this, and often it's the last piece I mentioned, it's the scholarship dollars, because really the scholarship money is eclipsed by the support that we provide. Every student that we work with in this program receives a minimum of $600 every year they go to PCC. And so the idea is often that this $600 is the hook to get them excited about the program, but the reality is the supports that we have are the ones that get them to the next year. Those 4 pieces are really what make up the essence of our College Success Coach and how they support a student in the program, from high school to completion at PCC. Now in the center of this is the student, and we have a tremendous amount of pictures and whatnot from students all across the city and the globe now. We have 5 students who are in India, Africa, and now South America, just based on some of the partnerships we've made with some of those other nonprofit agencies. But if we look at our two years, here's the data, right? Our first year, we had 144 students, 89% considered low income, 65% students of color, 83% first generation, and here's the big number for us, 70% fall-to-fall retention. And we set and this is our goal, 70%. And when we started this, many individuals said, 70%, that's a huge number, how are you going to get there? Well, we did, and we're there again, because here we are with our second group. We have 200 students that started this fall. And while the numbers are very similar in terms of demographics, 92% low income, 62% students of color, 83% first generation, right now we don't have that fall to fall because we're not there. But 85% are registering for spring term. Spring term starts April 1st. So we feel confident. Almost 9 out of 10 students who started in fall are still with us, and we feel like we're going to hit that 70% easily this next fall. Wrapping it up, it's real simple to look at this bar graph. That first blue column there, that's 19%. That's the TRIO eligible retention number for students from 2010 to 2011 at PCC. It means students who are coming from similar backgrounds who don't have supports at the campus, 19% of them are retaining, are staying. 2 in 10. For us at PCC, the average student, half-time, part-time, full-time, is 46%. For our program, as I said, 7 out of 10 students, 70% of our students are making it to the next year. And this purple one, while it's not directly comparable, because we don't have that third term yet, but we feel confident, and we are lucky enough to have students like Natty, who's here today to speak on behalf of that. Thank you, Natty. We feel confident we're going to hit that 70% again. So that's really the overview of the program, and I think the key to the program, it really lies in what the College Success Coach does and how they develop relationship and support with the student. And so we have Becca Moyer, who is our Cascade Campus College Success Coach. Wow, say that a lot. And she can speak to her role.
Thank you, Chair Crew and board members. Again, my name is Rebecca Moyer, and I'm a College Success Coach at Cascade Campus in North Portland. I began this job about 1.5 years ago, so when the program started, so I've seen a lot of students succeed so far at PCC. As Josh said, the Future Connect program doesn't start when students begin at PCC. It starts long before that. Right now I'm out in high schools. I work with 6 high schools right now and alternative schools trying to get students to apply and promote the program. So I developed that relationship with them from the start when they're a senior. And then I work with them as they transition over the summer months into PCC. College doesn't always make sense. Students, especially first-generation students, don't understand that they need to buy their books. This is a new concept. They need to apply for financial aid a year early, or that they need to register 3 months in advance of taking classes. These are all new things for any college student, but particularly those who are the first in their family to attend college. Once enrolled, students do get to take advantage of 2 free classes that we offer. The first one that I teach is geared towards teaching students how to be successful in college. Again, it's very different from high school and particularly from alternative schools where a lot of our students come from. So really teaching them the study skills that they need, how to talk with instructors, time management is a big thing that we talk about, really making sure they can be successful in college. After they take a careers class, where they get to learn about, what do I love to do and what am I passionate about? How is college going to help me reach my goal? So today we have Maddie here, who's back here, is going to come up and speak. She's wonderful. She's one of our first year students. I started working with her at Rosemary Anderson High School about 1 year ago, helping her transition and apply for scholarships in the Future Connect program and fully transition onto PCC. So I think we're gonna have her come up and speak about her experience.
We're going to have Maddie Omier come up, and Chris Nielsen from our foundation board, and Steve Calloway from the city of Hillsborough.
Hello, fellow board members. My name is Natalia Omier. I go by Natty for short. I am 19 years old, and I am a current freshman enrolled at PCC. I'm a first-year college student in my family, and I have high hopes and high dreams. A doctor, to be exact. I didn't think I had the confidence, but the Future Connect program showed me otherwise. I graduated with the class of 2012, and I was attending an alternative high school who had started their networking, where I had met Rebecca Moyer, one of the team instructors of the Future Connect program. I applied for the scholarship and was one of the lucky students to be accepted into the class-oriented pathway to success. They have offered me college luxuries, or necessities if you really think about it, that I wouldn't have had in the first place. Great instructors that are so enthusiastic about what they do and where they work, and are genuinely in love with their careers. Tutoring services, one-on-one, college guidance, life coaching and guidance, budgeting assistance, whether that be time or money, bus tickets when needed, tax information and assistance, college tours and scholarship opportunities, and college survival and success with today's careers. These classes have taught me so much about myself and sticking with my dream. They prove that accomplishing your dream is possible. Though you may doubt it at times, continuing college is worth achieving. The Future Connect program is an amazing program that I am very fortunate to be in. Other students like me should have this life-changing opportunity to continue their dream of college and lifelong learning. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to come before you today. I would like you just for a moment to think about your lives and where you are right now, what you've accomplished, what you've achieved, maybe your position, your stature. It could even be a hobby, something you enjoy pursuing in your free time. So take a moment and think about that. And now think about the fact that when you look at those things that you've accomplished, I would be willing to bet that every single one of you, like me, can identify a specific time or opportunity that we were given or support that we received. And that's what's so wonderful about this program. It provides kids with opportunities and support that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Dr. Crew, when you came and spoke at Liberty High School in the fall, and you spoke of your hairdresser who talked to you about having her son be able to participate in a program. And that was an opportunity that that child received, which no doubt has changed that child's life. And Project Connect, Future Connect does the same exact thing. So we have Natty in Hillsborough. The city of Hillsborough is going to be, has donated $100,000 in order to help this happen for 50 of the students from our school district. And as a city councilor, that really excites me because I believe that this is an important role for government to take. But as an elementary principal and a principal at a STEM school, it excites me to know that we have students who will be pursuing those STEM jobs in our community, and they will make an impact. And the investment that we make into their lives will pay direct dividends back into members of our workforce and for our local economy. We are paying for this out of funds that are coming from our enterprise zone. So for the first few years, companies don't pay any property taxes. And then years 4 and 5, they pay some money to the city. And so we are taking that money and we are putting it right back into economic and workforce development. So the money that we're getting from the companies are going right back to create a strong workforce for those companies. And again, it's, we talk about in Good to Great, the flywheel and the momentum. This is starting the momentum. And maybe it needs to go that way, but it's going to get the momentum going and continuing, and we are so excited about that. PCC has presence in Hillsborough in 3 different ways. The Rock Creek campus, the Willow Creek campus, and then in downtown Hillsborough, right by Tuolumne Hospital, right by Virginia Garcia Clinic, and right by Pacific University. So it's in our health and education hub. And so it's a perfect match for our city, for PCC, as well as our students. So when you think about opportunities and support, being able to provide that now in Washington County for the first time, I hope that puts goosebumps. I hope it gives you goosebumps. And if it does, then I want you to take your checkbook out and make a donation to the PCC Foundation. And that is my segue to you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Crew, members of the committee. I could not have set you up better, Steve, than that. Thank you. I'm Chris Nielsen. I'm the chairman of the Portland Community College Foundation Board of Directors and a former business owner whose heart sings when I hear the kind of thing that Steve is talking about, the workforce, and how vital that is to our well-being, all of our well-being, and how important it is that our students have the chance to meaningfully participate in the workforce. So let me tell you a little bit about Future Connect from the foundation perspective. We consider Future Connect to be our #1 priority in fundraising because it has such successful results and because it's such a positive story to tell the members of our community. The retention rate of Future Connect, which you have heard about, is remarkable. And that is an answer to a persistent concern that people have about high school graduation rates and what happens with those young people. Future Connect supports education and workforce development for bright young students like Natty, who traditionally may not have been part of higher education. This is what will lead to improvement in our workforce. The funding model speaks volumes about strong partnerships among business, industry, government, and education leaders. The local government, as Steve has said, contributes 50% of the funding, which is matched by the college providing 15% from its own budget and the foundation raising the other 35% from private donors, foundations, corporations, individuals. You have in your packets, I believe, the name of major foundations and businesses who are contributors to Future Connect. There are many, many more. These are large ones, and they face concerns, as do we all, about the low rate of high school completion and finding young employees who can successfully work in their businesses. This program makes sense to them as donors. The message to our communities is clear. This program works, and it makes sense to expand it with all of us contributing to the financial support. But that's not the last word. I want to leave you with just another thought about this. The program has great expansion potential. It's a program that can be replicated. As you've seen, Hillsborough is choosing to step up and do that. We hope that Beaverton will do so as well. But even within our PCC district, there are cities likely too small to make such a funding commitment. I would leave you with the thought that local funding is very important, but perhaps there is a role for the state in creating some sort of grant money that could be used for pilot projects that could serve as a catalyst to those smaller cities that are not able to come up with the full funding. And I wouldn't be a foundation board member if I didn't leave you with a little ask like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Wonderful presentation. You know, we've talked so much about how to get outcomes for I've learned a lot about when you have people in their freshman year of community college or four-year universities, that keeping them in the first year is really the pathway to success all along. And you've just created a great model for us to look at as we all figure out how to do that. So I really appreciate the innovation and commitment to students. And congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I hope you practice in the Eugene Springfield area.
Yes.
We're going to take a 10-minute break and we'll be back in 10 minutes. This is the time where we're going to be listening to subcommittee reports, and I'm going to assume, Yvonne, that your report has already done. So governance and policy.
The chair, Mr. Dunnigan, is not here, and I believe there are no updates to present on his behalf. That committee has not met since last week.
Okay, thank you. And equity in partnership. Nicole.
So we are making good progress. We have, I believe you all have received 2 versions. The most recent update was sent out by Dr. Crew this last Friday. We have a close to complete draft, and we are now taking it out to meet with over 50 groups and receive direct feedback. So we have sent a letter to, I believe, about 53 groups, including members of the business community, lots of diverse communities from around Oregon, every educational group we can think of. If you have additional ideas to add to that list, we're very open to it. We have sent a letter essentially saying that we would be happy to either receive comments in writing, receive comments through phone, and or come out and meet with folks. And we have actually received really excellent feedback from folks. We've had several groups respond in writing in a very thoughtful way. In fact, not just sort of the executive director responding, but actually many groups have convened smaller groups to share that feedback, and it's been overwhelmingly very positive and with some very concrete suggestions for improvement. We are looking to bring this full document to the April full OEIB meeting. We would like to request an hour on the agenda so that we can have a full presentation with representatives from the community about the importance of this work, and then our equity committee will follow up with a presentation. We do suspect that we will have public testimony at that time. We've actually had several organizations already request to endorse and sign on as supporters of this policy, even in the same letter where they're giving some feedback. So I think there's great excitement. The areas that we're still figuring out and working through really how to best reflect that this document is applicable to early childhood all the way through higher education. We also received some feedback about really expanding the document to be much larger than a focus on race and ethnicity, to poverty, disability, and a whole host of other areas. And so I believe that the way that we're approaching that through our conversations with the governor and Rob today is really to have a very expansive and clear definition of equity, and a lot of clarity around why equity is important to the success of Oregon, but also to call out that we feel that a focus on race allows us one of the best opportunities to improve overall outcomes for everyone, including the subgroups that we mentioned. So we didn't feel like we could create multiple documents and wanted to keep this as concise as possible. The other perspective is that we wanted to create a document that had very clear belief statements around the idea that we felt like every child can and will learn given the right environment, and to really create that from the highest level of a governing educational board. And so there is still a lot of work around how it will be implemented and how it will be used, but we will be pleased to bring that in April. We'll be pleased to receive any feedback from members of the committee prior to the April meeting so that we can accept your unanimous support. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
I just want to make a comment. I had the opportunity to be a part of the group that was giving input yesterday, the Oregon Leadership Network, and there was a lot of thoughtful conversation. One thing that I'm starting to notice as I participate in different groups is people are asking us to be brief rather than explaining too much, because then we start to get hung up in the language, and I'm sure you'll see that when that feedback comes back. Sometimes people are saying, if you just stop right here, you kind of have already said it. So that was kind of one of the main things I heard. But again, a lot of appreciation for the idea that OEIB would be looking through the lens of equity in all the work that we do. And so one of the parts they talked about very explicitly, I'm not looking at the document, but was towards the end where it talks about sort of what that process would be and how we would really go through that. And there was a lot of interest on how we would use that, so I'm sure they're going to ask for us to be really specific about that. But it was really exciting. People are excited.
Okay, any other questions? Hannah?
I think this is absolutely the work that we should be doing, and appreciate the comments that Nicole just made around the importance. And I also ditto what Dr. Curtis just shared about brevity. I had a hard time following the document, staying with it. I felt like there was a lot of words that got in the way of the message that we're really trying to convey. And I think that this is one of those pieces of information that we have to make sure that Oregonians understand, because we haven't been willing to have this conversation and we need to. So thanks for your work on it.
Anybody else? All right. Seth, I think, are we still, is there anyone for public testimony? No? So, spring forums.
Members, you'll note that at this point in time, I am canceling or at least postponing anything that remotely looks like or feels like a spring forum. The idea here was that what we wanted to do is to go back out as we did in the fall to engage the community in conversation about what we were anticipating going into the budget. This was going to be a conversation that was aimed at essentially giving that community an opportunity to hear now what actually happened or transpired as a result of the legislative session and how it would impact schools and schooling. And I elected to wait until we actually, A, get finished the session, and B, try to get the conversation that we really want to have about results and what we're looking forward to going into the next academic year for all of our P20 institutions, get that threaded into the conversation in the community. So this is likely to be postponed to something we'll again do in the fall.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any final comments about anything? Yeah, David.
Yeah, as we plan forums for the fall, it would be great if we just had a little preview and some input into them. You know, I think we've learned from our past two waves of forums, some improvements we could make in outreach and our presentation, what we're talking about, and it just would be great for the board to be involved. At least, I'm not saying micromanaging it or anything, but just to get a preview and be involved a little bit and have our input into what topics are covered and how they're covered.
I'll make sure that happens.
Okay. Anything else? If not, we're adjourned.